Hello and welcome to another episode of Tell Great Stories, the podcast that looks back at some of Unbound Theatre's past projects and productions. Today, I'm your host, Robert Aldington, and we're going to talk about two productions which were sponsored by local council. The first we're going to talk about is A Brief History of Britain, which was performed in the King's Head in Aylesbury, supported by them and also supported by Aylesbury Vale District Council. And the second production we're going to talk about is Captain Christmas, which was performed in Friars Square Shopping Centre and sponsored by Aylesbury Town Council. And I'm joined today by, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, folks.
Hello, I am Gareth. I played one of the hosts in A Brief History of Britain and was one of the writers on Brief History of Britain and Captain Christmas.
Hello, I'm Kati Herbert and I played Captain Christmas.
Hello, I'm Erika and I played the nefarious Dr. Sprout mwahahaha, in Captain Christmas.
I'm Emily. I played many characters in A Brief History of Britain.
I'm Andy Shaw and I played Bob and the Spirit of Christmas Dinner.
Excellent. So let's go ahead then and have a chat about A Brief History of Britain, which was performed at the King's Head. Gareth, so you were author of the show and the director as well, I think. How did the show come about? What prompted the show itself?
Well, it was something that we were sort of asked to do at the King's Head, and that was a real key part of the show itself, was that it wanted to show a connection to the venue and sort of draw out some of the historical facts about the venue. So Dario, who is the other writer on it, went and did a lot of research on sort of key events that happened throughout history that might be connected to the King's Head. And then we sort of went away and thought, well, how can we get both what we know quite a lot about in terms of history into it, and then also how can we get these facts about the King's Head? So I'm quite a fan of ancient history, so I knew we wanted to do something about Roman Britain, but then we had, for example, one of the facts that we found out about the King's Head was that they had a Act of Parliament clock, which is a special clock that was installed in pubs when there was a clock tax introduced and fewer personal clocks people had. So that then inspired us to do a sort of sketch about that. So it was a sort of combination between what we knew a reasonable amount about in terms of history, and then what these facts about the King's Head then prompted us to write further sketches on.
Right, so, the history is, well, it's a brief history, but it is a fairly full history, starting from Boudica, didn't it? And then through the Romans, then we had something about 1066, or the Bayeux Tapestry, then the Tudors, Stuarts. So how did you choose these various periods of history then apart? Was it, as you're saying, it was a mix of what you could link to the pub and also your own interest?
Yeah, I mean, it was, as you say, a link to those facts, and then what we were quite clued up on in terms of what we knew enough about to make sure that we were putting actual facts in there rather than just having, the pure sketch. And then I think we tried to pick the really key moments in history. So anything about the history of Britain is probably going to have a bit on Henry VIII in there, because he's probably the most famous bit of English history that every school child will remember. The Six Wives, for example. So you've got to get him in there somewhere. And as I say, I was a big fan of Roman times. Bayeux Tapestry, again, just such an iconic piece of British history. We had to kind of get something on that. It was just get the key points, get the ones linked to the King's Head, and then add in anything else that we got a key interest in.
Yeah, and of course, including right the way through to Alistair in the Spice Girls dress, which
right the way through to Alistair in the Spice Girls dress, which to his credit, he did go ahead with and really get into that and sort of play to the character of that really well. So
superb, yeah, absolutely. And Emily, you played a few parts in the show. What was your favourite part of the show, and which characters did you play? Can you remember?
My favourite part of the show was definitely being the caterpillar in the last decades bit, because I remember watching it and I was like, as the parts were being divvied out, and we were being told who we were, I was like, please let me be the caterpillar, please let me be the caterpillar, please let me be the caterpillar. And they were like, oh, you can play the Millennium Bug. And I'm like, yes! Which was very exciting for me, obviously. I was really excited.
Superb costume.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed many parts of it because I really enjoy history and performing. But what I found quite interesting is my favourite sketches weren't the ones I was in. I really liked the Boudica sketch, and I really liked the clock tax sketch. Just because there's a thing about performing that you don't switch off when you're off stage, and you tend to watch what's happening on stage, and that's one of those ones where you really watch it and engage with it rather than going, where's my costume, which is normally throughout that performance is your main form, because it's so quick. It's half an hour. I think I played 4. There were 5 costume changes, and they're really quick.
I love the Bayer tapestry. To do that as kind of a cinema moment was great.
It's genius.
But yeah, I love the clock tax as well, because I didn't know about the clock tax. So the great thing about this production is that I learned quite a lot of history, because I confess I didn't really pay any attention to history when I was at school. So yeah, it was a good fun show to be in. Mm-hmm. Now we did an audio version of the show, and also the show was reprised in the 24-hour show in 2020. So how easy was it to get back into the groove of what we were doing in those repeat shows, Emily, do you think?
I tend to find once I've learned something, I've learned it, and it's there, which can be a good thing and can be a bad thing, because when you come back to it, you're like, I know exactly how I did it before. But I like coming back to things because you get to play with them a bit more, and you're more confident. You're like, yep, I've done this, I know this, and you're like, yeah, and then they're like, oh, so we've added some new sketches, and you're like, of course you have. We can't just do the same thing again. So I like that. I like the way you've got what you know and something new, because you're coming in with a lot more confidence and feeling a lot more settled.
Was there anything that you changed or adapted the second time round, or was it like just putting on a pair of slippers, you just get back into it, and it's like going home in a way, isn't it? Sometimes something like that. I
know things did change, but I couldn't exactly tell you what exact little thing did change. I think when you come back to sketches and when you come back to any piece, it will evolve naturally, and it will grow and it will change without you really noticing what you're bringing that's new to it as such. I wouldn't say we did anything massively dramatically different. I hope we haven't, because I don't remember it. I don't think we did. So yeah, as you come in, you're coming in with a different perspective and a different knowledge, and I think even a slight different confidence will change what you're doing.
Did you change anything for the other productions, Gareth, on the writing side, or did we use the same script? I can't recall. We were off the same script each time.
I mean, obviously there were the new sketches, and so there was just slight tweaks to some of the dialogue between the two hosts, just to take count of where we are in the timeline and sort of do jumps at different places. But no, I would say the meat of the existent stuff was pretty much kept the same, and with similar sort of performances. And then the great thing about the way we did it was we then had all of the new stuff, the new sketches, to bring that freshness to it and give everyone sort of something new to do and sink their teeth into. So you sort of got that honed, revised version of what you'd already done, but you still had a new challenge and new stuff, new exciting stuff to do.
Erika and Gareth, on the same day, we were performing the brief history. You were performing the top entries in the 500 words competition. So tell us a little bit about that, the live final, and the films of the stories that were posted online later in the year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I found it really, really lovely. It was a really kind of lovely afternoon to be able to do that. And I think one of the biggest memories I've got is when I was on the stage and reading the stories and looking out and being able to see the kids who'd written their story actually hear it being performed. And their little faces, the one girl in particular, she was absolutely gobsmacked to hear her words be brought to life on stage. And I think that was really, really lovely. They were genuinely happy to all the stories that we had, they were great. There was a wide range of themes and different age groups. So there was like comedy, and there was some various almost like metaphorical, almost poetry or poetical stories there as well. And I think for the kids to be able to hear their words performed on stage, I think that was the biggest thing for them, and they were absolutely overwhelmed by it. I think even remember we had one family come up to us afterwards, Gareth, and they were very, very enthusiastic and they'd really, really enjoyed listening to it, and they were a bit overwhelmed by it all. So that it was really, really lovely. And then the filming of it, again, that was something completely different, because we had it was like fulfilling my ambition and dream of being on the CBeebies bedtime story. You know, Dario had built this miniature sort of set for us with I think as much leftover stuff from Sword in the Stone and all of the castle paraphernalia and lots of Merlin stuff behind us, and then we had the big throne room, and we had these big books, and we were in these kind of like cloaks and things. And it was all very, very tiny, because the camera angle was really, really tight. So it was this small area that it was just filled with stuff. And like I say, it was like being on CBeebies bedtime, and then just sitting in there with a big, oh my God, it was like all of my childhood ambitions of being on Jackanory as well. There I am, sitting in a big chair in a fancy costume with a big book telling a story. It was lovely. I really, really loved that. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like, just going back to the live final thing for a minute. I really, it's the really good thing about the sort of outreach theatre, that you do get an immediate sense of making a difference to other people's lives, just with little comments or that people make after the show that you do. I remember when we did the Fat Night in the Millwrights Arms in Aylesbury, and there was a family there having some dinner, and one of the children had asked his mum if they could go to the theatre, and I thought, you've made a real difference there in actually encouraging people to think about going to theatre who might never have been or wouldn't normally go. And same thing with the live final there, in terms of just seeing the joy of people, which you don't really get that often in live theatre production. Normally, because the audience are in the dark, and they may enjoy it and say that they do on social media posts afterwards. But there's a much more of an immediacy about that stuff, isn't there, when you're right there in front of people. So one last question, and related to the history stuff. So to everybody, we always seem to have these hints at what Unbound might be doing in the future. Which character from history would you most like to play? Gareth, go first. Who would you most like to play out of everybody?
Out of everybody in history, ooh. Do you know, I think I'd like to sort of go, and this is a sort of precursor to a project that we're going to be doing. Go back to Greek times and play one of the characters from there, sort of ancient Greek. So like, I'd love to play one of the ancient Greek philosophers. So like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, that kind of thing, and sort of do some stuff based on them.
Yeah, Kati, what about
Viking? I just want a big sword and just come and just slash everything, burn it.
Get in.
No messing around. Turn up. They were very successful, to be fair to them. They did very well. They're on their little ships. They came over. They took over. They had a lovely time. So yeah, Viking. I think that'd be awesome.
I can just see you with with the pigtails and the axe there, with the helmet with the horns on the top.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that'd be awesome.
They didn't actually wear helmets with horns.
Oh.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I was like, why would you ruin this for me? I mean, thank you for teaching me. But
when we did it, they will be wearing the helmets with the horns, and we'll probably make a joke about the fact that they then can't use them. So we'll sort of give Kati that brief moment of having one, and then it's like, yeah, but they didn't wear them.
Wasn't it the costume designer for an opera, from one of Wagner's operas, that created all of that?
Yes, that is what it is, because you couldn't see them at the back. Yeah, so they created the horns so they could be seen from the back at performances.
Something else I've learned working with Unbound. So, Erika, how about you?
I think when I was little, I'm very much with Kati on having a big sword. Yes, please. So possibly when I was little, it would either be Maid Marian with a sword, or Joan of Arc with a sword. Nowadays, I'm thinking possibly I'd quite like to do Elizabeth I. Take big speeches about having swords. But then also something else. being one of the pirates, Mary Read or Anne Bonny. One of those lady pirates, please.
So there's a theme of violence through all of those, Erika. You want to comment on that at all?
No, adventure, Mr. Aldington. Adventure.
Basically, yeah. Just give all the women weapons. It'll be fine.
Katie's the one who was talking about rampaging and, raiding and stuff.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I'll be in there rampaging. I don't mind.
Emily, are you going to join this band of marauding adventurers or...
I'm definitely fascinated by female pirates. I think it's a really interesting thing.
Blimey.
So yeah, female pirates. But I've always been fascinated with Greek myths. So there is that. That's not a hint, don't worry. But I really like anything we do in history because anything is just cool. It's just cool to know that these things existed and we're bringing them back for life for a minute.
Andy, what about you? Any thoughts on who you'd want to play?
Ooh, so many people probably.
Kurt Cobain, perhaps?
Well, I was thinking along the lines of how recent history could it be? Something like maybe Jim Morrison or even David Bowie or something like that. Some awesome rock star that kind of inspired me to sort of be part of who I am in a way. But maybe definitely David Bowie would be a good one because he was a performer as much as a musician as well, which is...
And he did feature another person that visited Aylesbury, allegedly.
Indeed, yes, so there's that connection,
Yeah, he played at the Friars.
Yeah, he created Ziggy Stardust at the Friars, didn't he?
He certainly was there.
There you go. There's a bassist there, Andy.
And then he got turned into a statue, and that's where he's...
and I suppose for me, asking the question was, I think I'd like to play maybe one of the great leaders, probably of recent history. So maybe, I don't know, some of the leaders who've, understanding what makes them tick. So people like Winston Churchill, or maybe, I don't think I could do the accent, but Bill Shankly, or one of the other great football managers, perhaps. I've done Henry VIII, of course, many times, but no, I think there are just as interesting leaders in recent history as there have been in the past.
Yeah, but we haven't got a costume.
So now
it's Winston Churchill during his Henry VIII imperialist period.
We've got some pirate stuff left over from Treasure Island, so lady pirates on the go. Yeah,
lady pirates.
Woohoo!
Well, one thing that we have learned is we have got a shipload of potential lady pirates in the company. So moving on then to the other production that we're going to talk about today, Captain Christmas. So performed in the Friars Square Shopping Centre in Aylesbury just before Christmas, logically enough. Written by Dario Knight and Gareth Johnson and sponsored by Aylesbury Town Council. So Gareth, again, you were the co-writer here with Dario. What's the storyline of the famous story now of Captain Christmas, and how did you come up with it?
So the story of Captain Christmas is it all starts with the nefarious Dr. Sprout in her lair, lamenting over the fact that no one likes sprouts at Christmas, and this has sort of caused a real anger to boil up inside her, and so she hatches this scheme where she's going to invent a sprout ray to turn every part of Christmas dinner, and I think possibly at one point everything in the world, into sprouts. And in order to do this, she needs to sort of find a power source to power up the device and allow it to operate at full strength to be able to do that. But luckily, the spirit of Christmas dinner is there to guide Captain Christmas, who is the superhero of the day, and guide Captain Christmas to figure out what Dr. Sprout is doing and how to stop her, and then it ends with the big confrontation, and spoiler alert, Captain Christmas saves the day.
Ooh, ooh.
So it's all good cartoon stuff, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and when you put it like that, that seems like a really out there, bizarre plot. But I think the thing was that once you got the basic premise of it's about Dr. Sprout and she's got this plan to turn all of Christmas dinner into sprouts, a lot of the rest of the plot really does follow your natural superhero tropes. So you've got the fact that Captain Christmas, has her double identity, her secret identity, and then she's, in this relationship with the hapless Bob, who she, always she's then got to disappear off and save the day, and he's, standing there hopeless and confused, not knowing what's going on. And sort of things like, finding the power source, the Legume Diamond. Again, that's just straight out of any superhero film. The big villain's got to steal the important MacGuffin in order to be able to power their device. It's just kind of, it all comes from those superhero tropes after that point.
Yeah, so it's a traditional good versus evil, good triumphs over evil story, which we have at Christmas time in pantos around the country, I suppose. So, Katie, that's this sort of style of theatre, this sort of cartoon character style. How much fun is it doing that sort of thing, and what are the challenges of playing these sort of outlandish characters?
It's nice just to have fun with something, just to go out there, have a good time. The audience get really involved in it with something like that. They feel like they can get involved. They feel like they can talk to you, and they kind of, you can interact with them. The challenging part, I suppose, is the choreography, because quite often with that, there's a bit of slapstick and there's a bit of physical action as well. So you have to have that choreography when you're having. At one point, Erika and I had a sword fight, but not really a sword fight, because you had a proper weapon, didn't you, Erika?
I had a lightsaber, because any opportunity to shoehorn Star Wars in. It was a lightsaber.
Yeah, and I had a roll of wrapping paper, and I had to beat you. So that side of things is the challenging bit. Remembering that, you have to, go step forward on this bit and lunge at that bit, and throw this or move that, and those kind of bits and pieces. Yeah. That side of things is the more challenging bit, really.
Yeah, and the audience are right on top of you in that sort of environment, aren't they? They were right in front of us, so challenging to make it real and keep the energy going. Erika, what do you think about that sort of theatre? What are the challenges for you?
Oh, I love it. It is high octane, high energy, but you've got to be really kind of controlled with it as well. And as Katie said, there was a lot of choreography, even down to because we are in a very, very busy shopping centre. We're using a lot of visual gags. So Katie was talking about the sword fight at the end. I actually remember rehearsing with Alice a bit where we just had to do like a double take. We kind of had to cross the stage in sync together, stop, do a lean, and then turn around and do a double take. And we spent a long time just like stepping, trying to get it in sync, and then how do we turn and how do we lean, and how far does she lean into me, and how do we go backwards without falling over, and to get it right every single time. You almost have to go through that choreography so that it becomes muscle memory, so that you're constantly going over the stuff. And in some ways it becomes, rehearsals like that become mechanical, but then once you get it, you breathe life into it, and then you can add like little looks and things, and then it looks spontaneous and just off the cuff, but then really, really clever to an audience. And that's what I love. I like being able to put the mechanics in structure behind it to make it look effortless, where in actual fact rehearsals can be quite rigorous in that respect. But also I just remember laughing my head off at the most ridiculous things. I can't even tell you what anything was now, but I just remember either standing in the wings or being on stage and just kept getting the giggles all the time. I blame Katie, I think, for most of it, but I blame Katie and Alice for most of it, I think. But yeah, I
blame the person that decided that I should go past on an office chair. That's who I blame.
Oh my God, yes!
Flying
Health and
on
safety.
an office chair.
Flying?
Yeah. Just push it. She'll be fine. Just push it. Don't worry about it.
Seemed like a good idea at the time and perfectly plausible. Andy, what do you think? What do you find the challenge? I mean, you had two quite different parts in this thing, didn't you? At least, so you were Bob and the Spirit of Christmas dinner. So how did you find it?
I found it was a lot of fun to play both of those. I found the playing Bob. I remember in rehearsals, I initially sort of gave him, aimed to give him a really wacky, cartoonish kind of voice, and I was directed quite rightly to tone him back down and just be a bit more of a regular character. And I thought, how do I do that? But it was absolutely the right call, because you need to make space for the other more cartoonish characters out there. So then, conversely, the other character I had was spirit of Christmas dinner, and he had to sort of fill the stage with his presence. Really, I think the best way I could do that was just to stand as big as I could. Really, just take up as much space and be as big a character as I could.
So one of the things about this performance as well was there we were in the shopping centre with the good folk of Aylesbury going about their Christmas shopping and all the other things going on. So how do we get on with the balancing of doing our characters but needing to project above the hubbub of what's happening? Erika, you're a voice specialist. What are your tips for that sort of thing?
Making it big and bold. I mean, I think I actually completely knackered my voice on that day, because not only was I doing the shows of Captain Christmas, I was also doing there was some Christmas event fundraising going on, so I was having to change costumes and then doing other things as well, and then switching backwards and forwards. So to do a show in a shopping centre as well. So if you're doing something in the open air, you've got to try and get it out to the audience, but then in a shopping centre you've got so many echoes to get over, and I think that was the biggest difficulty as well. And it gets to the point where you realise you either have to be incredibly bold and almost shout the stuff to get people to notice you at first, and then subtlety of voice just goes out the window, and you just try to be as bold and as big with your gestures as you can. I think every single photograph of me from that day is with my arms at a weird or very outstretched big angle. And then sometimes if you've got some kids on the front row, you can like lean forward and direct it to them. But you're trying to get people's attention and then trying to get the story out. And so being big, bold and simple. So I had the voice that I had this mostly trying to get people's attention with my maniacal laugh. And at every opportunity just cackling to get people's attention and also hopefully get them to laugh at it too.
Yeah. So you really got to have maximum audience involvement, haven't you? Get the audience as close as you dare, really, to bind them in, haven't you? To get their attention above all the other things that are going on around them. So, and this production as well, the production process was very short. It was quite a short rehearsal time, I think. Gareth, what were the highlights of the production? For you, how did you find such a rapid fire rehearsal process?
Yeah, I mean, I think the rapid rehearsal process works really well for these slightly shorter productions because it's only sort of half an hour. It means that you've got a few things to concentrate on, but you can really dedicate the time needed still within a short amount of time to getting those finessed. Sorting out all the business and the fun little, bits of business that you do throughout the thing. So, highlights for me were just all of those little physicalities. I mean, the lightsaber battle and the snowball fight and, as you say, Kati going whizzing across the stage, flying on an office chair. Sort of, we had enough time to devote to then getting those things right, even with that shorter rehearsal time. And it just means that you can fit these smaller projects in amongst the sort of larger sort of 2-hour projects that we also do, sometimes simultaneously to these ones.
Yeah. And could it be over-rehearsed? Do you think there's a risk that it becomes too mechanical if you do too much rehearsal?
I mean, I think it's so big that, you want to retain your energy and your excitement to play the characters, and you want to then focus the rehearsals on the complex bits, the bits that need precise movement.
Yeah. And
then the bits where you've just got to be the character and have fun with it, those can sort of be left to just, your knowledge and, inhabiting of the character and don't need that constant going over. Whereas if you need to know exactly, I step at this point and you step back and then you raise your wrapping paper and then I'm backwards with a lightsaber over the back of my head. That's the bit that you then need to rehearse and make sure works.
It's in between the sort of the choreographed set pieces, if you like. It's the energy of the characters that carries you over. for all of the other bits and for all of the storytelling as well.
I think for a short rehearsal process like this, you need to be working with people who, the moment they get the script, they look at it, read it through, and sort of start getting the characters. And I remember one of the first messages that I got back from Erika, sort of saying, "Is this okay for Dr. Sprout?" And you've sort of fully got the costume, and you're sort of doing a pose that just captures what the character is all about, and you just think, wow, you've done 3/4 of the work before we've even started the rehearsal process, because you get this character.
Yeah. What about you, Andy? How did you find the rehearsal process, the short time frame?
Yeah, it puts a good bit of kind of healthy pressure on to make you work harder to get it from the off, really, because even though it's a short thing, you could be mistaken to think, oh, it's only a short thing, it's going to be really easy, only a few lines, but really there's so much stuff in the detail and the characterization that is important to put the effort in. But also I found not knowing exactly where we were going to be, I do like to kind of picture the space I'm going to be performing in. So if it's in the Limelight, perfect, I already know it. If it's in Friars Square, well, I've kind of got an idea of how it looks. I've walked through there several times in my life, but not knowing exactly where we're going to be and how the people are going to be laid out and things like that. So I think for me, it was really important to have the space we were going to be using kind of replicated in the rehearsal room, so that I could really sort of gauge where I needed to be at any one time. And there weren't many spaces you had to be, because it was just the kind of banner thing, which was our back of the stage, and then we had we're behind there, changing between Bob and the Spirit of Christmas Dinner, or knowing which side had to go out and what was going to be there on the other side, if there's going to be a plinth in the way, or if there's going to be an office chair being wheeled from one place to another. For me, it's really important to know exactly where everything's going to be, no matter how small it is, to make it successful.
And how did you get on with drawing the audience in when you were actually performing in the shopping centre and projecting your voice and that sort of stuff over the hubbub that was going on? How did you get on with that?
I did worry about it, to be honest, because knowing it was going to be a noisy space as well as anything, and you've got general people walking past, and then you've obviously got loads of kids potentially shouting and pointing and screaming. But I actually found it okay, because having done all the hard work beforehand, I was able to really focus on what I was doing. But also you kind of feed off the audience. And of the 3 performances we did, I think all of them were kind of, you had a few kind of hyped up kids there, and they were really into it. So if you focus on those handful of kids that are completely sold into the story you're telling, and then that's it, once that kind of bond is made between performer and audience, then it really does sort of help to block out everything else that's going on there. So in terms of projecting the voice, I think it's kind of important not to really overdo it. And I think, again, just focusing in on the handful that are really into the story and possibly catching their eye and projecting to them. They're only a few feet away, really, rather than trying to fill. You don't want to try and fill an entire shopping centre. You're never going to compete with that kind of background. But just keep it. It's the finesse, really. Just keeping it straight in front of you. Yeah,
I think from my stand, I was the mayor, and I think I was having to make sort of vast pronouncements, and I did find that quite strange. It did quite difficult to grab everybody's attention. But you've got to connect with 1 or 2 people in the audience to try and draw in the crowd that's there.
Yeah.
So what everybody's highlights of the production? Gareth, what was your overriding memory of Captain Christmas?
I've got to say that the final epic battle between Captain Christmas and Dr. Sprout has got to be the highlight for me.
Andy?
I think having kids actually trying to help as well. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think there was a kid trying to point out where Professor Sprout was, and I think they were coming to the side of the stage and they're going, look, there she is, kind of thing. Yeah. I think that is brilliant. That's the
why
she literally came round the side and sort of said to me, no, I know where she is, follow me. I was like,
Katie, what was your highlight?
Well, probably moving away from the actual thing, because I think I enjoyed, the same things as the other guys. But yeah, because there was an event kind of going on as well. There were other performers. So I remember at one point having a conversation with a stormtrooper and a Disney princess. And that was quite fun. I quite enjoyed that. Who needs drugs?
Erika, your highlights of the show?
So much. I think it's that feedback, because it was very kind of pantomime comic thing, and it's that feedback where you either say something, and I got to play the villain, which is always wonderful. And having that moment where the kids, you look out at the audience and you pull a face, and the kids are all like going, boo, and it's like, no boos, no, you will not, because I am Dr. Sprout. and they kind of, they love to wind you up, and I love being wound up in that, and they would get the character all irritated, and I'd have to stomp off in a huff or something. And yeah, just those lovely moments of those connections, because it was such, it is a ridiculous story that everyone just kind of threw themselves into, and was so much fun to play. I just remember having face ache for most of it, because it was a lot of fun to do, a lot of laughter. And then, yeah, as Katie says, it was quite surreal, because immediately after we finished, I think we had Anna and Elsa come out to do a selection of Disney songs. So, yeah, and then we had various other Star Wars characters wandering around at this fundraising event. So there was a very surreal mix of all of us.
Yeah, it was. My favourite memory was a simple little bit of physical humour, just where I lift up a cloche and there's a sprout there instead of a diamond, and I just love that very simple, unexpected. It's a bit of touch of the sort of Morecambe and Wise. Lift up the cover and slap it back down again, or the Basil Fawlty kind of. It's not a duck, it's a trifle. That kind of moment. I just love that simple humour. Is for me, it's just genius. And if you time it right, it's just hilarious. So that was my little highlight.
And lifting the cloche up again to see if it had changed.
That's right. Yeah, just if I do it again, it might turn into a diamond again. I might not be living in this nightmare. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I was doing the craft activity nearby, and I was opposite, and I swear every time they came up while you guys were on stage, I was like, can you just go watch? I just want to watch this. And the thing is, obviously you guys did it more than once, and I watched the rehearsal, but I still nearly lost fingers giggling away, where I'm supposed to be cutting a snowflake, and I'm like, ooh. So it was good to watch while I was doing something as well, and it was genuinely so funny.
So now, the big question though. Brussels sprouts, yes or no? Emily, Brussels sprouts for you at Christmas, yes or no?
If they're done not boringly, you don't have to boil it. Like, there are other things you can do with sprouts. So yes, if done properly.
Gareth?
I would agree with that. It's kind of, as long as they're not mushy and horrible and, bitter, then sprouts, hurrah.
Excellent. Katie?
I have never had a bad sprout.
Oh.
Ooh.
Me neither. Erika?
Oh, I think it's going to be like completely different and opposite to my character here. But no, Brussels sprouts go into they're the same category as peas for me, which is they are small, round, green and evil. Can't stand them.
Oh, good heavens. Andy, please rescue us all from this...
Well, I like it.
Sprouts,
I like
yes.
a good amount of salt and pepper. And if you could stick them in the oven and roast them for a good 20 to 30 minutes, bring them back out and then stick a load of olive oil on them. Maybe put some chopped garlic in and give it a good old zhuzh around. And there we go. They are evil no more. They are amazing.
Yeah, well, if we ever need to release the Unbound cookbook...
Yes.
I was just going to say, next week on Cooking with Andy Shaw.
oh dear. Yeah, for those who like diarrhoea.
Well, something to look forward to. Thanks, Andy. And those reflections on Brussels sprouts and other matters bring us to the end of this episode. So thank you all for your thoughts and your memories. And thank you to everyone who's listening in. For more episodes of Tell Great Stories and lots of other great audio and video content, head over to unboundtheatre.co.uk or look up at Unbound Theatre on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or SoundCloud. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, folks.
Hi, I'm Andy Shaw, and who the f*** did I play?
I sense an edit.
Who did I play? I can't remember.
You played
Brian.
The Spirit of Christmas Dinner.
Yeah, Spirit of Christmas Dinner. I was going to say second, and then the first one was
And Katie's boyfriend.
Katie's
Oh,
boyfriend.
yes.
That'll do.
Yeah, I can't remember what your name
Oh,
was.
neither can I.
It's probably something generic.
What about broccoli? Who was broccoli?
No, they
No,
don't.
that was Alice.
Hang on, I've got the script on my computer somewhere. If anyone wants to know the name,
Yeah, who was he?
Was it Brian?
I don't think it was right.
Dave?
Captain Krang, and I'm loading up.
Doesn't feel
I'm
like
loading
a
up the
Brian.
script. Although, when did you appear? Oh, you played Bob.
Bob. That was it.
Oh, yes.
I-
Brought me a sandwich.
That's it. I knew it began with a B.
Excellent. So obviously a very memorable Christmas show for you, Andy. Then
Okay.
So brief history of Britain. Then
We may want to re-record an Andy introduction.